Call this meeting to order. At this time, please stand for the invocation by Ms. Henderson.
Lord, we just thank you for this day and for our great city. And we ask that you give us wisdom and that you lead and guide us to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with you. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Raise the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Tina. Okay, citizens' comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Comments about any of the council agenda items are appreciated by the council and may be taken into consideration at this time or during the agenda item. Council is prohibited from acting on or discussing items brought before them at this time.
I think these are all public hearings.
Okay. All right, this time I entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I would move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote.
I do have a question on that because we didn't have time in the work session. On number 12, we're approving an amendment to the fiscal year 2024 budget for annual service repairs for repairs to public works, but there's not an amount on there, so what are we exactly approving?
And Patricia, do we need to pull that off consent procedurally so we can discuss it? Someone needs to make a motion to pull that off the agenda.
I would move to amend my motion on the consent agenda to approve items 1 through 11 on the consent agenda and not to act on item number 12.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Cast your vote.
Hang on, Glenn, you want to cover that one? This is on the Public Works building on the rehab, please.
Well, we got to vote on the consent agenda.
I'm so sorry. We need to vote on consent. You are correct. You need to vote on consent first. Sorry.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now item number 12. Consider an act on an ordinance of the City of Corinth approving an amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget and an annual program of services for repairs to the Public Works facility and providing an effective date. Mr. Campbell.
Pulling up that item right now, Mayor. The total amount is $159,578 in your packet included, which I'm being told several had trouble opening for some reason. There's a breakdown in your staff report, and I can read that to you. Is that total all you were looking for? It's 159. Okay. Specific to that item. Yes.
Mayor, I would make a motion to approve item number 12 on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote.
You're not going to be able to cast the vote because it's part of the consent agenda, but I can just do the roll call.
You want to do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
Ms. Rail? Yes. Ms. Henderson? Ms. Pickens?
Yes.
Okay, it passes. Okay, item number 13, public hearing. Conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on the ordinance amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Corinth, being a part of the Unified Development Code to amend the building elevations of Plan Development 67, PD-67, on approximately 6.5 acres, with the subject properties being located at 3650 Corinth Parkway. Case number ZAPD 24-009, PD 64, Bridgeview, Corinth Elevation Amendment. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, Matthew Lilly of our Planning Department will present this item, answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. So tonight we are looking at a elevation amendment for the Plan Development 67 Bridgeview, Corinth. So just going into some background information on this site. It's located just east of here. It's a 199-unit, 55-plus active adult community. This PD was originally approved back in June of 2023, and since then we've had a few amendments that have gone through. We had a major PD amendment earlier this year to permit a small retail space on the ground floor, and then more recently in October there was a minor PD amendment to modify the layout of the main structure, to add 16 duplex units, and then to adjust the layout of parking and open space, and to modify the eastern access point to allow for a ride-out only exit. And so this is just a comparison of how the concept has changed since it was originally approved. That top one on the left was the original concept, and then the current concept is the one on the bottom right. You can see how the building has moved closer to the street, how the amenity center was brought into the main structure, and then those 16 8-cottage buildings, 16 units were added in the back. And so the proposed amendment tonight is, again, in regards to the elevations. The current PD standards require that all the building facade be composed of 100% masonry materials. This only allows cementitious siding on balconies, stairwells, patio recesses, and as an accent. And the applicant is requesting to add cementitious siding as permitted facade in strategic locations. And then the northern facade, as it currently exists, will remain the same and be 100% masonry material. So we had a few issues with what was included in the package, so we just decided to include again all of the amended material in this presentation. So this is just the text amendment, which is just some additions to basically allow for that material to be used in strategic locations. This is that front facade, which is remaining unchanged, and then I'll just quickly scroll through all of those elevations that are being changed. The cementitious siding are those lighter materials, as well as the reddish color. And then you have brick remaining on the bottom in some locations. And so, as of the date of this report, we have not received any letters of support or opposition. This application is consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. P&Z recommended unanimous approval on December 9th, and staff recommends approval as presented, and I am available for any questions you might have, and I believe the developer is also here in attendance.
Is there any question from the council?
I do. It was to be 100% masonry,
Correct.
and they're asking for a variance on that. By what percentage?
So it's not a described percentage. We've made a move away from depicting the exact material percentages in PDs, just to avoid cases where they might change a small amount of the elevation and then having to go all the way back through the process of a major PD amendment. What is shown is what is currently in their site plan and civil package, so it is what is being approved. As you can see in these, in certain instances, there is a total change. Like there on that bottom one, you can see it's gone to complete cementitious siding, but it's one of those walls that's very interior to the site. It's located in a recessed portion of the building, and then on the top, you can see that is a portion of the building that's facing their pool space, and that's incorporating more of that masonry material.
Can you go back to the duplexes?
There we go.
So that only looks like it has like a skirt of brick. There's only a skirt of masonry.
So it does.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah, and then that wall where the garages are, that's what's actually facing the street and what's visible from the outside, but primarily it is cementitious siding. Yeah. And then this is the other elevation that's provided for those. So again, it is just that skirt of masonry along the bottom.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Well,
I
just
mean, I get it,
Yeah.
right? But that is a big change, and there's a reason why it was, which I get some of the interior not being 100% masonry, right? But that's a big change.
understood. Yeah, and just for context, those are these units back here. So they're located probably 400 feet from Corinth Parkway, and this is also a gated community, so it would only be visible to those residents. So it's not visible to the average passerby, but this is what's being proposed by them.
This faces Corinth Parkway?
Correct.
So, and the brick, where it's lighter colored, that is the non-brick material, non-masonry?
So
No,
on
it's
here-
all masonry?
It's all masonry, so it's actually a mix on this one. I think they have some CMU brick, which is the gray, stone, which is the tan color.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good looking, the variation of materials. I just think on some of those other ones, it's way too much non-masonry. That's just my feeling. Like from a, I don't want to use quality because I'm not saying that, just aesthetically, you know, but that's just me.
Anything facing the street that you see when you drive down will be this.
Correct.
The backside of what would like face like the soccer fields and then the medical complexes, what do the backside of those look like?
So I can pull up the eastern side of that building. Yeah. So
Because that will be seen from Corinth Parkway, right?
it would likely be very hard to see down there because there is that row of trees along that ditch, which are to remain, and they're also going to be planting a row of shrubs, which are to be, I can't think of the word. Yeah, evergreen shrubs, which are to be fully grown within 2 years, I believe. But that's the side that's facing towards the soccer fields. You can see they've incorporated more brick and really only changed the cementitious siding in those more recessed areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think variation of building materials looks good. If it's just, I mean, I was raised on Air Force bases. Every single building looked the same. So that is aesthetically pleasing. I just worry about the ones that just like have that little skirt, you know. That was my only question. Thanks.
Any other questions from council? No? Does the developer want to present it?
He doesn't have a presentation, but he is available if you guys have any
Okay.
questions.
Is there any questions for the developer? If not, then thank you very much for your presentation and your insight. At this time, I'm going to open it up for a public hearing. Is there anybody that in the audience that wants to speak on item number 13 in the public hearing? Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Hi, I'm Drew Guillot, 4207 Hockaday, Dallas, Texas. I am the developer. I wanted to kind of give some context. And so there's a lot of undulation on this building. And so where the building pops out, that's going to be masonry all the way down. The siding will be tucked back behind the brick, and so it won't be seen as much. And then if you're coming westbound on Corinth Parkway or eastbound, both of those sides as it wraps a little bit back is going to be masonry all the way down. So what you see from Corinth will be masonry. From our standpoint, this is 55 plus active adult, and when we really started studying the plans and studying the colors, it became very institutional when it was all masonry. And we're not trying to sell an institutional life. It's active adult, something homey. And it took me a while to get used to that skirt on those duplexes. But then when I started thinking about we're trying to create a neighborhood here, and having that masonry facade in the middle of those duplexes with the skirt, it just felt a little bit more like a home to us as opposed to something that was all brick all the way around. We also thought that it would be weird that if we have these areas of siding to make a more dynamic structure, and then all those cottages were all masonry, it just wouldn't have fit architecturally. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing and entertain motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve case number ZAPD 240009, PD 67, Bridgeview Corinth Elevations Amendment as presented, and direct staff to prepare an ordinance.
Second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 14, conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on the ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the City of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code, on a city-initiated request on behalf of the property owner, Miguel Angel and Antonio Morello, to rezone two properties totaling approximately 2.2 acres from SF2 single-family to MXC mixed-use commercial, with the subject properties being located at the northeast corner of North Corinth Street and Shady Shores Road. Case number ZMA 24-008, MX-C rezoning. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Our Development Director, Melissa Daly, will cover this, answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is property at the north end of North Corinth Street, located at Shady Shores. It's an L-shaped property that's currently zoned SF2. Adjacent to the property are other townhomes currently under construction, Greenway Trails. And then to the west of the property are two industrial developments that are currently being built, one under construction and one coming. This is relatively small. It's only about 2.2 acres. This is a city-initiated request to rezone to MXC, consistent with what we have been doing over the last number of months to rezone downtown to mixed use. So this would be really the anchor to what we see as the downtown Main Street. This is in the comprehensive plan. This is shown as transit-oriented development, or TOD. That's the dark pink that you see, and the yellow stars where this property is located at the edge of that district. And this is the page in the comprehensive plan. It really speaks to the idea of a mix of uses with a form-based code that is encapsulated in the MXC zoning. 4 to 6 stories is what's listed there. This is a little bit smaller scale, which I think provides for a good transition with the uses around it. It's proposed to be a three-story townhomes. And so although this is a straight zoning case, to MXC wanted to show the site plan. This is very, very early stages, so this may shift a bit, but this is the general idea. Does show a traffic circle. Don't know if that's going to happen. That's part of the Shady Shores redesign that's being managed by the county, so that is not not part of this project. It's only shown so that we could let the developers know that that may come, and they have graciously agreed to provide the corner of that property for the use of a traffic circle if that were to come to fruition. The images you see on the right are examples of three-story towns. These would be what we call single-family attached, which means the lots are individually platted and individually sold. So those are examples of three-story towns with the garage in the rear. So they'll each have a two-car garage that'll be accessed from the rear. That means you'll have the nice architecture in front rather than a two-car garage door being the front architecture. So these are just examples. This has not been designed yet. But this shows an example of what the developer is looking at, kind of a Mediterranean or contemporary feel for the townhomes. To date, we've received 13 letters of opposition. All are outside of the 200-foot boundary. We've 2 live in Corinth and 11 live in Shady Shores. The application is consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. P&Z did approve the application with a 3-2 vote at their meeting on December 9th, and staff does recommend approval as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council have any questions?
I do. As far as there's 2-car garages, but is there going to be street parking?
The city plans for street parking all along North Corinth Street. We've part of the budget package for this year included restriping of North Corinth Street to allow for on-street parking. So yes, that will be. But the developer is contemplating visitor parking as well within the development. But street parking will be available to anyone, of course.
So the street parkings come in whether they do this or not, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
But we'll be bringing that plan to y'all before we implement anything, as we promised previously.
Melissa, wasn't there parking shown on their concept plan, kinda?
yes, they have some.
Corner.
Yes, you can see some visitor parking in the corner.
Okay. But no street parking. I mean, there's no place to park anybody in the street.
Well, you can see where they've shown that. As Scott mentioned, we'll come back to you. That part of the downtown plan that we had talked about previously did envision on-street parking on North Corinth Street. So we told him that, and they've showed. You can see that on the left-hand side there for on-street parking.
Are there any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you very much. Does the developer want to make a presentation? Did you want to make a presentation or speak to this?
I don't think they have a separate presentation, but they're here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, then at this time, I'm going to open up this item number 14 for public hearing, and we have several people that would like to speak. Mr. Don Williams, please state your name and your address for the records, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Don Williams. I live at 100 Sunset Circle in the Lakes of Shady Shores, near the proposed site of case number ZMA 24-0008. I can understand why the City Council would want this development to increase your tax base. However, I would ask you to consider a few factors before approving this development, which I oppose for several reasons. First, you will be approving for 51 families to live in a 2.3-acre area. That's very dense housing. It will also have 50 to 100 plus cars coming into this parking in that particular area. Second, with that amount of density, I'm concerned about what this property will look like in just a few years. Generally speaking, you'll have these homes tend to flip every few years, and the pride of ownership that you have in an original owner may not continue throughout the life of this particular development. Thirdly, I'm concerned about the infrastructure. As you mentioned, there will be some on-street parking, and I understand that'll be whether this development is approved or not. But currently, those are fairly narrow streets that I travel every day, both of them, and I'd like to ask you to take that into consideration. In conclusion, I want to urge you to take a long, hard look at this very dense development, especially where you just approved some 120 townhomes adjacent to this particular property. Thank you for allowing me to share my opinion on this property, and I hope you will take my thoughts into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Larry Warden. Yeah, please state your name and your address for the records, please, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Larry Warden. I live at 3301 Benbrook Cove in Corinth. I'm the source of a lot of your emails that you've gotten in from me recently. The challenges I have in this start at the very beginning of it with P&Z and the notification that went out to the folks or didn't go out to the folks that live nearby. Now, granted, we have this 200-foot area that those are generally the only folks that get any notification on it at all. But you have people that lived right across the street from there that are, granted, they're Denton and they're Shady Shores. The signage was tough to see, so they had no way to even know that they should object to this whatsoever, right? So it kind of was, we'll say, rubber stamped through P&Z. But, you know, in discussions with council, I understand that P&Z doesn't have anything that they can do other than put something through, approve it. They don't have any bias that they can have on a particular area. Great, right? So now it comes to you, and it sits on your lap. So the challenges that exist in this, and changing it from SF2 to MXC, presents a bunch of things along with it, right? If you look at the list in 2.0703, it lists all the things that can potentially become. Now, in listening to the P&Z meeting, the discussion was very clear that there was a point made that there may be businesses beneath these townhomes. We don't know if there will be, we don't know if there won't be, but where will they go? Will they go in the inner portion of the neighborhood? Will they go in the outer portion of the neighborhood? There's no way to tell. Then you deal with the on-street parking portion of what we're talking about on North Corinth Street. North Corinth Street is a 60-foot right-of-way. In order to do what's in the current ordinances that you have in place, it requires 65 feet of space on that right-of-way. That would include sidewalks, bike paths, going back and forth, and then trying to get into this parking as well. So you're really taking this space and scrunching it down. And when you take the trees, heritage trees that we'll call them for lack of what we really call them in general, but these trees are 20 inches in caliber or larger. There's quite a few of them that run along that North Corinth Street that you'd have to take those out in order to be able to facilitate all of this stuff and put it into place. So that's another challenge that I put in front of you. A large part of this, too, is this idea that we're going to put into place, potentially, a roundabout. Now, I don't have a challenge with a roundabout. I travel all over the world all the time. Much of it has been spent in Carmel, Indiana, which is the king of roundabouts. They do a fantastic job of it. But if we look at the city of Corinth, we don't do such a great job of it. There's a great one that sits down Lake Sharon Road, Boulevard Drive. But you look at this one right up the street here, it's horrific at best. And when it first went in, and even still today, you see trucks driving over it all the time. So now you're going to take into this and put a roundabout up here that we don't have approval for. We're expecting that it's going to go to Denton, and maybe through the grace of God, Denton will say, yes, let's do a roundabout in here. But do they or don't they, right? So we don't have any guarantees about that.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you. Next person is Mr. Ed Barnes. Please state your name and your address for the records, please.
I am Ed Barnes. I live at 3403 Attaway Circle. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association for Somerset. I would like to say that I'm not speaking for myself, but hopefully most of the residents of Somerset. Let me begin by talking about the development on the corner of Somerset and North Corinth. Probably our biggest concern with the development is flooding. Y'all know we have been very concerned about the flooding from Greenway already, and now you're adding to it. And this property is uphill from us as well. Of course, it flattens out there at the corner, and then it goes downhill, flattens out again, and then proceeds downhill. There's going to be a flooding problem if it's not engineered properly. We're not against the development. We're against flooding. Okay? That is our concern. And the problem is in many cases, many cities, you've seen it, where the engineering has possibly been done properly. Later on, we have these 100-year storms, and then the city is inundated, the residents are, and then the city tries to hand it over to Public Works, tries to fix it. We've already had the problem without any development, and it's been turned over to Public Works. They dig our ditch out a little bit and say that's fixed. It's not. We call them back the next year, fix it again. It's not. Okay, that's been done several times, and it continues. Okay, and we all know, we've heard about it with various cities. They end up with lawsuits, and it goes on for years, and nothing gets fixed. Nobody's happy. Okay, I can tell you specific incidences on specific homeowners. We have them here in the audience, some of them. There's one where his place simply gets flooded up to his patio. The house next door, he wants to build a swimming pool. He can't. It's impossible. Another homeowner has fish in their swimming pool. Okay, now where's the river? There's somebody else has a pond with fish in it. Okay? Another homeowner, the city comes out and they build a dirt berm and gives them bales of hay to stop the dirt from running into their swimming pool. How would you like to have a bunch of dirt in your swimming pool? Okay? The city doesn't come out and clean it up. All right? Not only that, that homeowner has had to raise their sprinklers several times just for their erosion. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. We have Ray Warden. No? Okay, do not want to wish to speak, but they're want to be recorded. Go ahead. Yep.
So just to finish up the rest of the thought on this, it's not that we're against what's going to happen at this work, at this development. It makes sense. It's the fourth time the city's tried to do something in that area, and I hope the guys are able to do something with that property. It's just a matter of whether it's done correctly, right? It needs to be planned correctly, and it can't be dumped over onto Public Works for them to figure it all out later on, right? So that's the point of all this. It's great that it's going to go in. It's a great idea. Things need to be done. We need the tax on it. But all the planning that we do here has got to be done correctly and planned well. Not just go, well, sounds like a great idea. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. So that's my parting shot.
Thank you. Jean, is it Curlin? She does not want to wish to speak, but she's against the project. Okay. Are there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? State your name and your address. You got 3 minutes.
Jim Fliss over here at 330004 Attaway Cove. Can you bring up one of the schematics? I had a question about how it's designed. Is that possible to bring a schematic up? Yeah, the first one's fine. Next one. And the next one, I'm sorry, 3. One more. Okay, so on Shady Shores, you're showing, on this schematic, you're showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. I assume that they are similar to the picture on the right-hand top of these townhomes. So is that the assumption that you are going to build 70 of these that are facing Shady Shores? That's what my concern is.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, at this time then, does anybody else want to speak to this? Okay. State your name and your address. You got through. Do it so they got it on the record.
Hello, I'm Bob Baker. I live at 1121 North Corinth Street, and I can't really believe all that's going on, and I know I can't stop all the construction. I don't own that property, so I don't control it. But the way they've groomed that hill, it is aimed all the water at me. And I know they've got drainage pipes, and when those pipes get full, when we have a 100-year flood, which we do have 100-year rains more than every 100 years, so they say, but I get an incredible amount of water as it is, and all the water that comes off of that hill my way and all the water that comes from the saddle of North Corinth Street is piped down a drainage easement down below my driveway, and it goes into my tank where it stops. Like the easement stops at the tank. And the way I understand it, y'all are thinking maybe that's a retention pond, and maybe it's used as one, but it's not in the easement. And you had two ponds or tanks that you had uphill on the new project that just got canceled, just alleviated, and now my tank's the only tank that can retain anything on that side, and it is extremely shallow. It's silted in. It's been silted in for years. The two little rains that we recently had just about filled it up. And if we were to get 3 inches tonight, I would have red mud in my carpet. And I don't think that people have really thought that through, or if they have, it's like the joke's on me, I feel. And I wish somebody would just come and walk down my driveway and look and put your feet right where all this is happening. And I think it would be, at least would raise a pretty big question in your mind if all these reports and studies about where the water goes, if it's really correct, because I was bad before all this, and I can't really take any more, and it's more's coming, I feel. So I wish y'all would look at that, and that's really all I ask. I don't want to ask you to stop construction and all that. I just want you to make sure the water's going to go where they say it's going to go. I don't see how that can be, but I suppose that's my greatest issue.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your input. Okay. State your name and your address. You got 3 minutes.
My name is Richard Gajewski. I live at 3305 Attaway Cove in Corinth. I moved here 7 years ago. Bought a house, hoped to be my forever home. And lo and behold, that I know that my plot plan showed some drainage going through my yard, but I had no idea to what extent. And this had been something that I come to learn that has been a battle for our neighborhood since some things have changed around our perimeter out of our control. All we can do is speak about it and let you know what's happening to our current conditions. And I believe that adding more hard surface without some serious consideration of what goes down Shady Shores obviously is going to make it worse for all of us. We got cul-de-sacs under a foot of water going up to almost their garage doors. The recent project under current construction has tapped into our neighborhood sewer. I can't wait to see what that's going to do. I really hope it doesn't accentuate the problem. But I've dealt with it on my own property. I back up to Shady Shores, probably three houses down from the corner of Somerset that's closest to where you're talking about here. I had to mitigate my own problem. I had 10 inches of water 5 foot off the back of my house at a 15-foot wide river. Somebody would go down my left side, the rest came in my left side, went across the back of my house, and down the other side, making it unusable. And after me and some other homeowners, with pictures, with crying for help, I had to spend upwards of about $20,000 to mitigate my own property, which when someone mentioned that they came out with a backhoe and kind of groomed our trench on Shady Shores Road to try to get the water to move, it's a joke. It did nothing. And we kept going and kept going saying it's not fixed, not fixed. Well, it cost me a lot of money, and I had to mitigate it, and I gave up. But not everybody has that opportunity to do so. So on their behalf, I'm asking, we got some serious problems, and they're not getting fixed, and we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. You want to speak? Okay. State your name and your address, and you got 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ed Beaver. I'm 3307 Attaway Cove, and I am Richard's next door neighbor. So I've been here before with all the flooding in our Somerset. Me and several of us have spoke to you in the past. We're not against development. We love our city, but at the same time, the problem we are all talking about is the same issue we're having. It's that water that's going to come down Shady Shores Road. It's going to go through Baker's Pipe, which is undersized. I have literally been just like Richard's. I've stuck $20-something thousand in putting fences in under Tobin, raising the yard. I have a boat in my backyard that's almost floated. So this is not exaggerating. We have turned y'all in thousands of photos and videos of what's going on. All we're trying to do is reach out to y'all and say, look, let's keep Shady Shores clean. We understand what you're trying to do on North Corinth Parkway, but let's be realistic. We have waited a long time for Shady Shores to be developed, and several of us are aware that Denton County now is going to control the money in the developing. Well, whether it's a roundabout or whatever, we're not going to get any relief. We're not getting any culvert drain. We're not getting any of that time soon, because everything that y'all were working to do has now been removed from y'all and been handed to them, and now we're going to be forecast out later for new development, new this, new that. We don't want to wait to be flooded out, and we're talking a lot of water. Millions and millions of gallons are flowing down through there, and they are coming into our property. I've done dye tests that have left our subdivision and come back into our subdivision, and that's all we're trying to do. We just want to control the water. We want to see it develop. I don't want us to widen a road to turn around and make street parking on Shady Shores. It's already congested enough with all the school buses and the trucks. I understand they want to put signs that says with the new furniture distribution center that trucks don't go past this point. Nobody uses the street sign. They use Waze apps and who knows what. We're going to get big trucks through there, whether it's shingle delivery, furniture delivery, or people even moving. If you shut us off at North Corinth, you're traveling everybody up Corinth Parkway through Shady Rest, right in through another neighborhood with small streets and kids. So we're just asking, we don't want to stop development. We just want to slow it down, and let's look at the real deal and stop posting stuff that's going to be. Last meeting, it was 51 units and 6 department stores underneath it was street parking. Well, if that's not what it is, say we don't know. Keep us advised of what it is and give us time to react, because the signs that were posted were behind trees that were down and folded over, buckled down in the bottom of the hill. And half of the homeowners weren't even driving that way because you're cutting the roads to tie in the sewage and the water and everything else that's on North Corinth. So we're diverting already to go another way around. We would have never saw the signs. So please, just take it into advise that we're not trying to stop it.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Do you want to respond to these? Sure.
concerns that we've heard tonight and the passion behind them. As we know, this decision in front of you right now is a city-initiated rezone. Once that rezone has been initiated and approved, it will allow our teams to authorize our engineering teams to spend time, money, and resources to make sure that the water retention and those questions are answered thoroughly, and as we bring to you a fully code-compliant site plan at that time, and we anticipate making sure that that will happen.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'd entertain a motion on that item.
14.
I do. I have a question. Is there any way that we could, because this isn't, a site plan hasn't been presented and it's not a official application, an MXC by right allows, a lot of different things. This project, townhouse, 3-story townhouses is fine. But if something happens that this does not work out and they decide not to proceed with the development, now it's MXC, which will allow another developer by right to put in a much more dense 5-story apartment complex if they wanted to. So is there any way that with the stipulation that we can say that it's limited to 3 stories or that is my fear, because nothing formal has been presented. That's just my fear.
I understand this is a straight zoning request, so the short answer is no. I will say that this is a 2-acre site. You can't put a 5-story building and
no, I know.
Parking. So the practicality of a large-scale development of any kind isn't physically possible at all. This is really the highest scale development you could even fit on a 2-acre site. So it doesn't allow for industrial use or any major heavy use. It's not physically possible to do a 4 or 5-story type building. You just wouldn't have room for the parking and everything needed for that.
Melissa? Sorry. Can you speak to the process a little bit and what happens before the development is approved as far as the engineering that's required for control of the water?
Yes, and that's really why developers don't come in with full engineered plans. They don't have the zoning, so it's quite expensive actually to engage in that process. We do require first a site plan has to be submitted. The site plan has to be in accordance with the zoning. That is reviewed and discussed, and there's quite a bit of kind of back and forth in that process. Once that is approved, the developer will proceed into engineering, and that's a pretty intense process that goes through multiple, depends on the project, and go through 4, 5, 6 reviews with our engineers. One of the requirements is to meet the requirements of ISWIM. That is the requirement that COG uses to require that drainage be addressed. So in a nutshell, it means that they cannot distribute more water than pre-existing conditions. So that has to be engineered to show where is that water going to go. The vast majority of the time, what happens is the drainage in the surrounding area is improved, because right now there is no drainage system for this property. So one is established, and that water routed in a way that cannot go to or provide additional problems for other properties. So that's my non-engineering explanation.
So, the basic layman's version of our regulations is the water flow after the development has to be the same or better.
Correct. You said it better than I did.
And that part of the review isn't what we're voting on tonight. The developers typically get the zoning in place so that they can get the investment, raise the money essentially, or justify spending the money to do the engineering, so that they know when the development goes in that they're going to control the water the way it needs to be controlled, among a lot of other things, correct?
Yes, and that is required of all developments. Unfortunately, that's not been the case for developments that have been there for decades or a long time. I'm not sure when that came into place, but we've had it in place for a while, and so it is required of all developments.
Yeah, and I think that's something, since I've been on council, we adopted to tighten those standards because of the problems we've been having in a lot of our neighborhoods, including some of the folks here tonight. And then hopefully, sorry, I'm losing my voice, don't want to get too far off task here, but part of the cooperative project we're doing with the county and Shady Shores along Shady Shores Drive is because there has been historically a lack of control of water because of that roadway, and part of that design is intended to alleviate some of those drainage problems when the road actually is rebuilt, correct?
Yes, I mean, Glenn's the point person on that, and he may speak more detail, but that is part of the very important part of that project.
And I'll add to that, Councilman, even though Denton County, and someone alluded to it tonight, has taken over project management of Shady Shores, which we were originally going to take the lead on that, and they came back. They expanded that scope just in terms of linear feet of the road further outside of Corinth. But we have every intent to be super involved with the county, communicating with them as they do that design, and not let any of the drainage, potential drainage improvements that we would hope would come from that project, we still want that to happen.
And jurisdictionally, that is a challenging project because not all of that road is either in Corinth or Shady Shores. And so in order to coordinate the project, we worked with the county. And the other part of that is because we are doing it with the county is going to pay for some of it, which lessens the tax burden on our citizens for fixing the problem. So we hope that there won't be any delay in that project. If I lived over there, I'm sure it wouldn't make me feel any better that I hoped it wasn't going to delay it. But there was a cost-benefit decision made as far as the sharing and the burden of those tax dollars in coordinating that project. And so I hope y'all realize we have tried to approach it thoughtfully, and I don't know if I understand your concerns because I'm not living it, but we sympathize with it, and we really do want to make it better as soon as we can.
Any other questions from council?
I like the project. I think they look really great. I almost feel like we're getting the cart before the horse, and that if what you just said about the road and the drainage, maybe we need to wait till that's done and then move forward with rezoning. But that's just my thoughts, because we keep saying we hope, but if we did this and then the road didn't get done, I don't know. That's my concerns. I love the project. I think it's very pretty, but that's my concerns.
It's not a project. That is a drawing. That's not a site plan. That's not anything. Our engineering criteria require that they neutralize the water for whatever they do. The zoning is a change in order to enable us to catalyze developers to invest in it. That's my thought.
Scott, what is the timeline for the county? I'm just curious.
You want to speak to that? I think we're waiting to hear. Ever since they took over project management, that has created some delay, as Councilman referred to. But you want to speak to anything you've learned since then?
No, there hasn't been anything new. Next council meeting, we will eliminate the ILA. Then they'll give us an engineer and all that information. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion on that item.
I would move to approve case number ZMA24-0008 as presented.
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote. Passes 3 to 1. Okay, item number 15, conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on a request to
amend UDC subsection 2.06.02K, building heights, case number ZTA 24-008, UDC MXC, building height amendment. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Melissa's going to handle this item as well. Answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. One of the things that we have looked at in some of the developments that we've been exploring with MXC zoning is the MXC building height requirement. We currently require that there be a 20-foot separation when a development is adjacent to one or two-story single-family home property, that it not be more than 2 stories. And the request this evening is that a 3-story be allowed in that 20-foot with that 20-foot separation, only for single-family attached or detached. So all other uses would be required to have that 45-degree plane, which is currently in the code. So you can see the image now that requires that 45-degree plane after the 20-foot. So what we're recommending is that, as I mentioned, that 3-story be allowed with the 20-foot separation without the 45-degree plane for only single-family attached or detached up to 3 stories. So something like this development, wanted to show you kind of what that scale looks like roughly. So this is an example of that roughly 20 foot. It's probably a little bit more than that separation, but it shows you the adjacency of, say, a 2-story single-family home or homes next to a 3-story, keeping in mind that our MXC zoning requires a flat roof. So often you'll have, for example, a 2-story home with a pitched roof next to a 3-story with a flat roof, and the differential is not very much. We feel like it's a good transition, again, specifically for single-family attached to, adjacent to single-family. So that's the caveat. Here's a couple other examples just to give you an indication of that transition. We do feel like it's a good transition from 2-story single-family to 3-story single-family with the roughly 20-foot separation. And you can see here some imaging showing that scale. So on the left-hand side of both of these images are 2-story, and then on the right-hand side you see the 3-story. We feel that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan for TOD, which is typically where you're going to see, of course, the MXC zoning, talking about the mix of uses, developing character and context benefiting a new downtown, land use types and density of 4 to 6 stories. But again, we're talking about transitional use, so no more than 3 stories. The text amendment does, we feel, provide appropriate transition while allowing for transit-oriented development envisioned in the comprehensive plan. Planning and Zoning did approve the request with a 5-0 vote at their regular meeting on December 9th, and staff does recommend approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the council? No? Okay. At this time, then, I will open a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion on that item.
I'll move to approve case number ZTA 240008 as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 16. Conduct a public hearing, consider testimony, and act on the ordinance amending UDC subsection 3.04 construction plans and procedures to require development agreements to be associated with construction plan approval and to clarify timing of construction release. Case number ZTA 24-007, UDC construction plans and procedures amendment. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, Michelle Meixel, our planning manager, will address this item, answer any questions.
Thank you, Council, Mr. Mayor. I am excited to present this very dynamic topic to you this evening. development agreement and construction release. We worked with Patricia and Public Works over the last month to come up with really what are technical items that help to clarify a process that needed to be tweaked in the UDC. And really, the purpose of the development agreement, by way of background, is to make sure that the construction of public improvements are secured, that specific public improvements are maintained by the property owner of an HOA, and that the city receives bonds to secure the performance, the payment, and maintenance of infrastructure. And what these amendments do, they provide more appropriate timing for the development agreement that we utilize and address some language conflicts that have arisen in the text now that we have it also related to the form that we now use. Mostly related to the timing of plans for construction when they're approved and the time that the developer is ready to commence construction. So that's the amendments that you see in your packet. We have the ordinance in there for you. This is the full text. Rather than going through all of this, there are a lot of red lines. I thought I would just mention by each of the items what the changes were. So really, this section is just clarifying the timing for the construction plans to remain in effect, and it's now 18 months as opposed to a year. This very large section talks about we're adding a reference to development agreement prior to the release of construction. Previously, the language in our UDC spoke to a development agreement at the time after final plat or recordation of a final plat. So we're now moving this to being related to after construction plans are approved or prior to release for construction. We're also clarifying timing. We eliminated some conflicts related to timing, so it's consistent with the form that we currently use at 18 months. In this section, we are clarifying, again, the timing for a development agreement and security, which is the payment related to the public improvements, the bonding. We're requiring approval of construction plans, again, in this section prior to release for construction of the public improvements. And we're also doing this regardless of when the public improvements are constructed, whether it's before or after final plat being recorded. We are clarifying that the city manager is the approving authority on this item or his designee. And then finally, this section, there's a lot of language, but it clarifies the language related to the type of bonding. And if you have questions on this, I know Patricia would be also excited to respond. So I'm just going to page through. Again, this is about payment bonds and maintenance bond and clarifying and cleaning up all of that language. Same thing, adding to that. And then lastly, related to the adequacy of security, we added language to, again, clarify that section. On December 9, the Planning and Zoning Commission passed a motion 5-1 to unanimously recommend approval of this item. We, staff, recommend approval of the item, and if you are so inclined, the motion there is before you if you'd like to approve the procedures as presented.
Are there any questions from council? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. This time I'll open it up for a public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion on that item.
Mayor, I'll move to approve case number ZTA 24-0007 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 17, consider and act on updating the development agreement template to align with the amended UDC section 3.04 and authorize the city manager to approve future agreements utilizing this template. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe this item is relative to the dynamic presentation you just heard from Michelle Meixel, and this is approving the actual template agreement formally by the council, reflecting what she just presented. Is that correct? Thank you. I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead if you have anything to add. I'm sorry.
I do have a couple of other changes that were made. So in line with the updates that Michelle just presented on the UDC, we are removing the requirement of final plat approval in the development agreement template that we have currently. Section 2 we also updated to make it more clear the difference between the private improvements and the public improvements. We did have some confusion with several developers, so we just broke those out into different subsections. That way it was kind of easier to delineate who was responsible for which items. All the requirements remain the same as the current template, and we have no additional requirements in the new proposed template.
Is there any question from the council? Thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Mayor, I would move to approve the updated development agreement template and authorize the city manager to approve future agreements using this template.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Item number 18, consider an act on a request a contract change order for the engineering of Walton Drive, contract number 198348 with Walter P. Moore. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe Tristan is going to handle this item as well, answer any questions that you may have about this change order.
This request is for change order number 3 of the engineering of Walton Drive. This change order includes a redesign of the street lighting plan. The current street lighting plan shows sparse lighting, street lighting on the north side of Walton Drive. The new redesign would include pedestrian lighting on the north and south side of Walton Drive. The redesign also includes the sidewalk at Olympia. Currently, the proposed sidewalk is the existing sidewalk that the developer of Walton Ridge installed, and we would remove that section of the sidewalk and bring it closer to the street to better align with the rest of the roadway.
Okay, are there any questions from council? If not, I'd entertain a motion on that item.
I make a motion to approve the requested contract change orders for the engineering of Walton Road, resulting in an additional cost of $18,440 in accordance with Texas Local Government Code Section 252.048.
I will second.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote. There you go. You're unanimous. Okay, item number 19. Consider an act upon an alternative compliance tree preservation request by the applicant property owner MMD Development to exclude healthy protected trees removed from the proposed building footprint from the tree mitigation calculation and a waiver of remaining mitigation fees on approximately 2.67 acres located at 5024 South I-35E, case number AC 24-004. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I believe Miguel Inclán, our city planner, will cover this request, answer any questions.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Miguel Inclán, City Planner. Today I bring before you an alternative compliance application for a proposed retail site at I-35 and Ashton Gardens Lane. And why is my information not coming out? It's 2.67 acres. It is a heavily treed site with a significant slope. I believe it's a 30-foot grade difference between the southern portion of the property and the Ashton Garden side. And the applicant will speak more to the engineering aspects. It is zoned under Plan Development Number 6, which is the Oakmont under the Commercial Shopping Subdistrict. The proposal is for a 14,651 square foot retail shell building. 124 parking spaces, including on-street parking on Ashton Gardens Lane, which again is a private street that is individually owned by each property owner. So you can see that the property line goes to the center line of that road. It is undeveloped to the south and the north, and then the Ashton Gardens wedding venue is right here on the west of the site. This is a proposed site plan for this project. We went through one round of review, so it is subject to change. However, we feel that the general layout is unlikely to change. As you can see here, it's just your general building with parking, surface parked 100% interior to the site, as well as out, again on the private street. There is limited tree preservation being proposed, and I'll touch base on that in the next slide. So this is the applicant's tree survey. This is the latest one that we have reviewed. There are 251 protected trees totaling 2,880 caliper inches. The applicant is proposing to remove 232 of those trees, totaling 2,667 caliper inches. There are 19 trees as of the latest iteration proposed to be preserved, totaling 213 CI, which is 7% of what is the total protected on site. And those are the two areas highlighted here in the southwest corner and the northeast corner of the site. Due to the preservation being less than 10%, the applicant is required to come to City Council for approval of tree removal, and they only get the base credit of 1-to-1, so 213 caliper inches. So based on the sliding scale, based on the size of the trees and the number of trees, the required mitigation is 2,359 caliper inches, or if you pay the fee, $380,000 approximately. The applicant may offset 9 trees proposed to be planted beyond the required landscaping. So in their proposed landscape plan, the applicant is showing, the required buffer trees along I-35, street parking trees, and street trees along Ashton Gardens Lane. So beyond what he is planting, he's proposing 9 additional trees that could be used to help offset some of the mitigation. So this alternative compliance application is divided into 2 components. The first one is the building footprint exclusion. Here outlined in red is the proposed building footprint, and as you can see, there are several trees on site. So the building footprint exclusion provision in our code is that when preserving 20.1 or more of the percentage of protected caliper inches on site, the applicant may request that trees within the building footprint be excluded. This decision is at the discretion of the City Council in consideration of furthering economic development and promoting the principles in the comp plan. So just to remind you all, they're preserving 7%, which is below the 20.1. The applicant chose to bring this before you as an alternative compliance request. There are 39 trees in this footprint, resulting in a mitigation requirement of 436 caliper inches or $65,400 if they choose to pay the fee. If this is granted, the mitigation will be reduced by this amount, and then the remaining mitigation is 2,100 caliper inches, totaling $315,000. The second part of this request is that the applicant is requesting alternative compliance. They have to provide the basis of their requested departures from the provision, demonstrate a hardship that justifies the request, with an alternative solution that is more beneficial to the public good. So the applicant has the burden to demonstrate that hardship, and this decision is also at the discretion of the City Council. So the City Council finds the hardship, they can make the decision to grant any alternative compliance request. So the applicant is requesting a full waiver of the remaining mitigation after the building footprint exclusion is granted. So if both requests are granted, the building footprint and this, and the applicant plants the 9 replacement trees shown in the landscape plan, then the waiver will be for 2,076 caliper inches, which is equivalent to $311,400. The applicant, as stated before in the building footprint exclusion, the council may elect in furtherance of economic development goals. The applicant is projecting $2.3 million in annual sales revenue, which is assuming an average of $300 per square foot for the anticipated retail and restaurant tenants projected by the applicant, or $47,000 in annual tax revenue to the city. The property is currently valued at $500,000, and the anticipated property value of $3 million once the project is developed leads to an incremental annual property tax revenue of $12,850. We do have one condition. If the council, we don't have a recommendation for this because these are at the discretion of the city council, but we do have a request that if this application is granted, that any existing preserved tree, if it dies or is removed due to construction activities, that the mitigation rate for those remaining trees be at a rate of 5-to-1, regardless of size. The reason for this request is because we want to make sure that contractors are accountable. We have encountered multiple issues where trees are dying beyond what was represented to be preserved, so we want to make sure that everybody's accountable. We have the two motions, and I believe it's also in your presentation. Do you have any questions before the applicant presents?
What's the dollar difference between what they would have to pay and what they're asking to pay?
Well, they're asking to pay zero, so if you grant the total mitigation, you would be looking at a full waiver of $380,000.
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Miguel. Do you want to make your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Just state your name and your address for the record,
My
please.
name is Zach Majra. I'm one of the owners on this property, and we like to develop that. I had a few, yes, so been over the location is, the hardship on this is this site is extremely challenging to build on. Basically, with about 30 feet difference between one end to the other, we got to go down. Can I change? Yeah. So this is the site basically with all the trees on it, and we have to cut on the south end. We have to cut about 12 feet to go down, and cut about half of the land, and then move all there to the other side to make it level, to be able to put a building on it, basically, and have flat enough parking so people can park without hurting themselves. So we had the same challenge in front of TxDOT that we had to approve. We had to prove the hardship, and we asked to get access from the side road because we did not have one, and they wanted us to use the Ashton Garden, and we had to do a lot of engineering analysis, fluid analysis, and so on to TxDOT, and prove to them that we could not use the Ashton Garden for access, and we had to go in the middle so we can flatten the area. And you see there is already a drive that we built for this site. So that's the reason, unfortunately, that a lot of trees has to go in order to make it buildable. So this is basically what that entails, that we pretty much have to put a retaining wall all around this site to make it work. Estimated at $516,000 for retaining wall to put there around it, and also put railing on the top of those because they are from anywhere from 3 to 6 foot tall walls that you have to put protective railing on them. So unfortunately, that's the reason that a lot of trees. So basically, like Miguel said, the only set of trees that we can save after excavation is the green area. There is one onto the south of the drive. We had to remove that one for the reason that Miguel mentioned, that later on it could die because it's close to the construction. This is what is planned. We have about 60 new trees that will go all around this property, and that's about 8 to 10 times more than what we had on Magnolia Center at Lake Sharon to compensate for the trees. So the challenges, again, like we said, is a steep slope. It's hard to build on. The associated cost, the excavation cost for this place is about $430,000 compared to Magnolia Center that we had $150,000. Magnolia Center is a bigger place than this. So the excavation is very challenging as well.
I have some questions. Are you done?
Just the last one, yes. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Do you own the property or are you have it under contract?
No, we own the property.
Okay. When you were negotiating the purchase of the property, did it come up that it would be a challenging tract to develop and that there would be tree ordinances that you'd have to satisfy and you'd have to pay fees in order to develop it?
We knew that, and at the time we talked to before we bought the property, we talked to the city manager, previous city manager, and we brought the concept to his attention and said, we'd like to do a development over here, but these are the challenges that we have, and if the city is willing to help. And they say, yes, we can help. And we talked to the economic development with Bob, and they said there no promises that we will do this or that, but it was very positive. So based on that, we went ahead and bought, and we thought we could make a really good, nice Class A building over there.
Yes, sir. But do you see my point? I feel like maybe you got a price break on the land because it's difficult to develop, and now you're trying to get a price break on the fees.
I don't think that the price that we got is a break.
You didn't pay less for the property because it would be hard to develop?
Yeah, but not that much. That if we knew that we had to pay $1 million just for the retaining wall and the excavation, we probably would have never touched it. At that time, we didn't know.
Did you pay less for the property because you knew it would be hard to develop?
Obviously, we paid a little bit less, but not a whole lot of money. You know, the land next to it is sold for only $50,000 because it's not developable.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council? No? Okay, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the alternative compliance request for building footprint exclusion and the waiver of remaining mitigation with the condition that the applicant plant the 9 replacement trees as shown in the proposed landscape plan and that any subsequent tree mitigation resulting from construction activities be mitigated at a rate of 5-to-1.
So that we can vote, I will second it.
Okay. Are there any further discussion? Okay. Cast your vote. It is not approved. Okay. Council comments and future agenda items. The purpose of this section is to allow each council member the opportunity to provide general updates and/or comments to fellow council members, the public, and our staff on any issues or future events. Also, in accordance with Section 30.085 of the Code of Ordinances, at this time, any council member may direct that an item be added as a business item to any future agenda. Mr. Burke.
I'd just like to wish everybody Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Ms. Rail.
I did want to see, just because it's come up, I think, several times since I've been participating in city stuff, if we could just have a conversation about increasing the notification radius for zoning changes as far as like the mailouts go, because I know the 200 feet has been, I've heard that come up a bunch of times. So just having a conversation to see what we could do to maybe increase that, if that's okay.
Ms. Anderson.
Nothing, sir.
Ms. Pickens.
I just have a couple things. So I failed to make this point when we were talking about the item at the northeast corner of North Corinth and Shady Shores Road. And I can absolutely empathize with flooding. My property has flooded since I bought it, but that doesn't, if we had a zoning case that was SF2 that came, that issue would still be there. So that's why changing it to MXC, that would allow for a more realistic development. That didn't have any impact to me in a difference in the drainage than if it was SF2 or if it was MX6. So I just wanted to make that clarification. Also, I'm going to be at Christmas at the Commons, so I hope everybody is out there. And this year, my daughter is more excited about Santa Claus than I think she's ever been in her whole life. And so we're very excited. Last year, she didn't really care about Santa. This year, she's all on board, and now we're even bringing Christmas Eve into it. So I thought I was only going to have to deal with one day, and now I've got two. But I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Thank you for the support that you've shown me and my family this last year. And now we're on to bigger and better things. So thank y'all.
Question I have is, Ms. Pickens, are you going to be on ice skates?
No. No.
No? Okay. Again, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And again, I wanted to thank the planning and zoning staff and all the people, a whole staff, for all your efforts that you put into these council meetings, because you come well prepared. You're very thorough in your presenting the information so that we can make good decisions for the citizens of Corinth. And we just appreciate that. And with that, have a Merry Christmas, and we're adjourned.